1943, a single bomb, steered in real time from 4 miles above, sank a 45,000-ton battleship in under 30 minutes. 1,393 men died. The weapon that did it would not be matched by any military on Earth for another 50 years. That weapon is number 1 on this list. But before we get there, you are going to see a revolving gun from 1718, a silent rifle that terrified Napoleon, a torpedo guided by wire in 1877, and a remote-controlled bomb on tracks for World War II. 15 weapons, 3 tiers, 5 weapons each. Every single one arrived before the world was ready. Tier 1, ideas that appeared centuries too early. Tier 2, industrial weapons that transformed battlefields overnight. Tier 3, stealth, guidance, drones, and precision strike that arrived decades before anyone thought possible. Each tier gets more unbelievable than the last. This is ex-military. Let's begin. Tier 1, the early Visionaries. We begin in the age of black powder. When 5 inventors saw the future, centuries too early. Our first weapon was built in 1718. It had a revolving cylinder, fired 9 rounds a minute, and came with 2 types of bullets. One for Christians, one for everyone else. Number 15, the Puckle gun, England. 1718. What would you do if someone showed you a revolving weapon in 1718? James Puckle patented a tripod-mounted flintlock with a revolving cylinder that could fire 9 rounds per minute, triple the rate of any musket. During its only public demonstration, it fired 63 shots in 7 minutes, including reloads. The military showed zero interest. The flintlock mechanism was unreliable. Manufacturing was primitive. And here is the detail that has entertained historians for 300 years. Puckle designed square bullets specifically for Ottoman Turks, to, as the patent stated, convince them of the benefits of Christian civilization. Square bullets. For theological reasons, history is not always dignified. The revolving cylinder concept was correct. It just needed 143 years to become practical. But the Puckle gun failed because its mechanism could not keep up. The next weapon had no such problem. It worked perfectly, and that made its story even more frustrating. Number 14, the Ferguson rifle, Britain. 1776, a rifle that loads from the back, fires in the rain, and reloads while lying flat in 1776, and the British Army threw it away. Patrick Ferguson patented a breech-loading rifle that fired 6 to 10 rounds per minute. During testing, he stood in a driving rainstorm that would have silenced every musket on the field and kept firing. He poured water directly into the open breech, cleared it in seconds, and fired again. The British Army formed a 100-man experimental corps. Ferguson was wounded at Brandywine. The unit was disbanded. He died at Kings Mountain in 1780. The rifle worked brilliantly. England simply could not manufacture enough. 4 gunsmiths could not produce 100 in 6 months, at 4 times the cost of a musket. Breech loading would not return at scale for another 60 years. Only 5 Ferguson rifles survive today. The Ferguson failed because of manufacturing. The next weapon failed for the same reason, but what it could do in 1780 sounds like it belongs in a science fiction novel. Number 13, the Girardoni air rifle, Austria. 1780, no smoke, no gunpowder, no sound. 22 rounds from a magazine. In 1780, this weapon scared Napoleon so badly he reportedly ordered anyone carrying one to be executed on the spot. The Girardoni used compressed air at 800 psi to fire 46 caliber balls from a tubular magazine, silently and rapidly. A full magazine emptied in under 30 seconds. It could punch through a 1-inch pine board at 100 yards. The Austrian army adopted it immediately, but it needed 1,500 hand pump strokes to recharge. It needed a clockmaker to repair, and most military armorers were blacksmiths. It was phased out by 1815. Meriwether Lewis carried one across America. He demonstrated its rapid fire to every tribe Lewis and Clark encountered, and never showed them the filling process. They believed it had unlimited ammunition. They called it great medicine. The expedition never lost a single man to hostile action. 3 weapons so far, all infantry arms, all personal weapons. The next one thought bigger, much bigger. It asked what happens when you change not a rifle, but an entire class of naval warfare. Number 12, the Paixhans shell gun, France. 1822. For centuries, navies fired solid iron balls. They punched holes. They rarely sank ships. One French officer asked the simplest question imaginable, and it took 30 years for the world to understand what he meant. Henri-Joseph Paixhans designed a naval gun that fired explosive shells, hollow projectiles filled with powder that detonated inside wooden hulls. He published his arguments. He demonstrated the gun. He proved it worked. No one listened. For 30 years. Then came the Battle of Sinope in 1853. Russian ships armed with shell guns destroyed an entire Ottoman wooden squadron in under an hour. Not a battle, a massacre. One engagement proved what Paixhans had argued for 3 decades. Wooden warships were finished. Within 10 years, the first ironclads appeared. The USS Monitor, the CSS Virginia. Every steel warship in history traces back to the question Paixhans asked in 1822. The Paixhans gun changed what warships were built from. The next weapon tried to change how you destroy them, and it introduced a concept in 1877 that should not have been possible for another 70 years. Number 11. The Brennan Torpedo, United Kingdom. 1877, a weapon you can steer after you launch it. In 1877, before radio, before electronics, before anything that should make that remotely possible, Irish-Australian inventor Lewis Brennan patented a torpedo steered by two wires connected to a shore station. By reeling one wire faster than the other, an operator could guide the torpedo in real time toward a moving ship. He could watch it travel and correct its course, live, as the target maneuvered. The British government purchased the patent and installed Brennan torpedoes in coastal defense forts across the empire. It was the world's first practical guided weapon. Wire-guided missiles would not reappear for another 70 years. Brennan saw the future. The world needed 7 decades to catch up. And this idea, guiding a weapon after launch, remember it. It comes back at number 1. And when it does, it changes everything. Tier 2. The Industrial Revolution of WAR. That was Tier 1. Ideas before industry could support them. Now industry catches up. And the next 5 weapons transform every battlefield they touch. It only gets crazier from here. The first weapon in this tier put the firepower of an entire infantry line into one machine, and the man who invented it was a doctor. Number 10. The Gatling gun, United States. 1861. One weapon, one crew. The sustained firepower of dozens of soldiers. In 1861, Richard Gatling, a doctor from North Carolina, invented a hand-cranked, multi-barrel weapon capable of firing up to 600 rounds per minute. He believed that replacing many soldiers with one machine could actually reduce casualties. History proved him wrong about that, but his mechanical genius was undeniable. During the Spanish-American War of 1898, Fort Gatlings under Lieutenant Parker supported the charge up San Juan Hill and showed what concentrated mechanical firepower could actually do in capable hands. The Army declared the Gatling obsolete in 1911. But the rotating barrel concept came back in the jet age as the M61 Vulcan cannon, now mounted on the F-16, F/A-18, and F-22. Richard Gatling's design fires 6,000 rounds per minute in the nose of a modern fighter jet. The Gatling proved sustained mechanical firepower was possible, but it still needed a hand crank. The next weapon removed that requirement, and what it did to the battlefield is almost difficult to describe. Number 9. The Maxim gun, United Kingdom. 1883. The first weapon that fires itself. No crank, no manual cycling. Just hold the trigger, and it does not stop until you release it or the ammunition runs out. A friend told American inventor Hiram Maxim, invent something that helps Europeans cut each other's throats more efficiently. He took that advice seriously. The Maxim gun was the first fully automatic weapon, using its own recoil to eject, reload, and fire continuously at roughly 600 rounds per minute. One trigger, one crew, unstoppable volume of fire. At the Battle of Omdurman in 1898, Maxim guns cut down wave after wave of charging mightiest warriors who had no frame of reference for what sustained automatic fire even was. Every major power adopted it. Then came 1914, and generals planned infantry charges as if the Maxim did not exist. The result was trench warfare. Years of stalemate, millions dead. No infantry charge could break through. The armies needed something that could cross no man's land under machine gun fire and survive. What they came up with crawled out of the fog, and no one on the other side had ever seen anything like it. Number 8. The Mark I tank, United Kingdom. 1916. September 15, 1916. The song. Something emerges from the mist, steel, tracks, guns, and no one on the German side has a single word for what they are looking at. The Mark I was the world's first combat tank, 28 tons, 8 crew, designed to cross trenches, crush barbed wire, and absorb machine gun fire that would kill any exposed soldier. The name tank came from a cover story. During transport, the vehicles were described as water carriers to fool German intelligence. Mechanical failures were constant. Conditions inside were brutal. Heat, engine fumes, deafening noise, and the physical shock of crossing cratered ground at walking speed. But where the Mark I worked, infantry advanced further in hours than they had in weeks of conventional assault. The full tactical doctrine the tank required, deep penetration, combined arms, exploitation of breakthroughs, would not be fully developed for another 20 years. The concept, armored, tracked, combined arms warfare, would dominate the next century. Every main battle tank on Earth descends from the Mark I. The Mark I solved the problem of crossing no man's land. But the next weapon asked a completely different question. What if every single infantryman could fire automatically? Number 7. The Fedorov Avtomat, Russia. 1916. An automatic rifle with a detachable magazine, designed for every individual soldier, in 1916. 30 years before the AK-47 existed, Captain Vladimir Fedorov created a select fire weapon with a 25-round detachable box magazine, capable of both aimed semi-automatic fire and fully automatic suppressive fire. He used the mild Japanese 6.5mm Arisaka cartridge, light enough in recoil that an ordinary infantryman could control it on full auto. It saw combat on the Romanian front with the 189th Izmail Infantry Regiment. It worked. but only around 3,200 were produced before production ended in 1924. Russian industry, shattered by World War, Revolution, and Civil War, could not support mass production. The concept Fedorov proved, select fire, detachable magazine, intermediate cartridge, is the exact definition of the modern assault rifle. The STG-44, the AK-47, the M16, all are his conceptual descendants. He had the right answer 30 years too early. The Fedorov gave individual soldiers automatic fire. The next weapon removed the soldier from the weapon entirely, and what Germany built in 1942 sounds like it was invented yesterday. Number 6. The Goliath track mine, Germany. 1942, a remote-controlled robot packed with explosives, steered by wire to a tank or a bunker, and detonated. In 1942, the Goliath was a small tracked vehicle, about 4 feet long, carrying up to 100 kilograms of high explosive. An operator guided it using a 3-conductor wire cable, drove it directly to the target, a tank, a fortification, a defensive position, and triggered it remotely. About 7,500 were produced. It saw combat at the Warsaw Uprising and on multiple fronts. Its fatal weakness was obvious. One bullet could cut the wire and kill the weapon instantly. It was slow, fragile, and hard to conceal. But the concept, remote control, disposable, unmanned, lethal, that concept was decades ahead. Modern unmanned ground combat vehicles are its direct descendants. The Goliath just needed 80 years of electronics to reach its potential. Tier 3. The future arrives. EARLY 2 tiers done. 10 weapons covered. Every single one was ahead of its time. But Tier 3 is different. These last 5 weapons are not just early, they are so far ahead that some of them defined entire categories of modern warfare. Ballistic missiles, heat-seeking missiles, stealth aircraft, armed drones, precision-guided bombs. All of it appeared decades before anyone thought it was possible. And it starts with a weapon that did not just change warfare, it launched the space age. Number 5. The V-2 rocket, Germany. 1944, an explosion in London. No aircraft overhead. No air raid siren. No warning of any kind. Something has arrived at more than twice the speed of sound, and nothing on Earth can stop it. The V-2 was the world's first operational ballistic missile. 46 feet tall, liquid-fueled. It reached speeds of 3,500 miles per hour and altitudes of 50 miles, crossing the boundary of space during its flight. It was the first man-made object to reach the edge of space. Over 3,000 were fired at Allied cities. There was no defense. There was no interception. The weapon arrived before its own sound. Its designer, Wernher von Braun, was captured by American forces after the war and later led the Saturn V program that carried Apollo astronauts to the moon. Every ICBM, every submarine-launched ballistic missile, every satellite-launched vehicle, every crewed spacecraft, all of it traces directly back to the V-2. It did not just change warfare, it changed human civilization. The V-2 proved what a weapon could reach. The next weapon proved what a weapon could follow, by chasing the heat of a jet engine through the sky. Number 4. The AIM-9 Sidewinder, United States. 1956, a missile that locks onto the heat of a jet engine and follows it. Fire it and forget about it. In 1956, before the Sidewinder, shooting down a jet meant predicting where it would be and firing at empty sky. Physicist William McLean at China Lake built the world's first successful heat-seeking air-to-air missile. It detected a jet engine's infrared signature with a lead sulfide seeker in its nose and simply chased it. Its combat debut came in 1958 when Taiwanese F-86 Sabres downed Chinese MiG-17s over the Taiwan Strait. One missile reportedly lodged intact inside a MiG without detonating, giving the Soviets a nearly complete copy of the guidance system. The Sidewinder entered service in 1956. It is still in production today, 70 years later. Over 110,000 built, used by air forces on every continent. The concept was right the first time. Drop a comment right now. Which weapon on this list has surprised you the most? We read every single one. The Sidewinder made aircraft vulnerable. The next weapon made an aircraft invisible and flew combat missions for nearly a decade before the world even knew it existed. Number 3. The F-117 Nighthawk, United States. 1983, a combat aircraft that flies in secret for almost 10 years, striking targets in the most heavily defended airspace on Earth, and the public has absolutely no idea it is real. The F-117 was the world's first operational stealth aircraft, developed by Lockheed Skunk Works and kept completely classified until 1988. Its angular faceted shape deflected radar energy away from receivers. Its surfaces absorbed radar signals. The shape was so aerodynamically unstable that it could not fly without constant computer correction every second. During Desert Storm in 1991, F-117s made up roughly 5% of Allied strike aircraft, but struck approximately 40% of strategic targets on the opening night. Downtown Baghdad, the most heavily defended airspace in Iraq. Not a single F-117 was lost. Every stealth aircraft flying today, the F-22, the F-35, The B-21 Raider exists because the Nighthawk proved one thing: stealth works. The F-117 made the pilot invisible to radar. The next weapon went one step further. It removed the pilot from the aircraft entirely. Number 2, the MQ-1 Predator, United States. 1995, no cockpit, no pilot on board. A man sitting in a trailer in Nevada controls an aircraft flying over Afghanistan and fires a missile in real time from the other side of the planet. The MQ-1 Predator was a remotely piloted aircraft that could orbit a target for up to 24 hours, far longer than any manned aircraft. It started as a surveillance platform. In 2001, it was armed with AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, persistent surveillance and precision strike, without a human anywhere near the battlefield. The Predator separated presence from risk permanently. A pilot could now fight a war and drive home for dinner. It also raised questions about targeted strikes, civilian casualties, and the ethics of remote warfare that remain unanswered today. It was retired in 2018, replaced by the more capable MQ-9 Reaper. Every armed drone flying anywhere on Earth is its operational descendant. One weapon remains, and it is the reason this entire documentary exists. Before GPS, before laser guidance, before smart bombs had a name, before precision warfare existed as a concept, there was a weapon that steered itself through the sky, controlled in real time by a human operator with a joystick, and struck a specific point on a moving warship from 4 miles above. In 1943, this is the weapon that opened this documentary. This is the weapon that sank the Roma. This is number 1. Number 1, the Fritz X guided bomb, Germany. 1943. Everything in this documentary: guidance, precision, remote control, it all begins right here. The Fritz X was a 3,000-pound radio-guided armor-piercing glide bomb with a 710-pound warhead, developed by Dr. Max Kramer beginning in 1938 and manufactured by Röstl AG. Dropped from roughly 20,000 feet by Dornier Do-217 bombers. It was steered by a bombardier using a joystick and a radio link, watching a flare burning on the bomb's tail as it fell toward the target. It reached speeds of 767 miles per hour and could penetrate over 5 inches of armor plate. On September 9, 1943, 2 Fritz X bombs struck the Italian battleship Roma as she sailed south to surrender. The first penetrated her starboard hull and detonated under her keel, flooding boiler rooms, knocking out propeller shafts, starting electrical fires. Minutes later, a second Fritz X struck and detonated a forward magazine. Roma broke in two. Admiral Carlo Bergamini and 1,393 crewmen went down with her. In the days that followed at Salerno, Fritz X severely damaged the USS Savannah and the battleship HMS Warspite. The weapon was not perfect. It had a success rate of only about 20%. The bomber had to fly straight and level to guide it, making the aircraft an easy target for fighters. Only around 1,386 were produced. The Allies eventually developed radio jamming to counter it, but none of that changes what the Fritz X proved. A bomb could be steered. A specific target could be hit precisely from 4 miles up. A human operator could guide a weapon in real time to exactly where he wanted it to go. Every laser-guided paveway, every GPS-guided JDAM, every precision munition and every modern arsenal descends from the question Max Kramer asked in 1938. What if the bomb could be guided? A Fritz X is on permanent display at the Smithsonian. The moment precision warfare was born, preserved behind glass. 15 weapons, 3 centuries, the same lesson 15 times. The idea always arrives before the world is ready. Puckle's revolving cylinder became the M61 Vulcan. Ferguson's Breech-Loader became the standard for every rifle. Brennan's wire guidance became every guided missile. Gatling's rotating barrels sit in the nose of the F-22. The Maxim's recoil operation runs every belt-fed machine gun. The Mark I became every main battle tank. Fedorov's concept became the AK-47. And the Fritz X became every smart bomb and every modern arsenal. Military history is not just a record of what happened. It is a map of ideas that refuse to stay buried. Which weapon should have been ranked higher? Tell us in the comments.